And we're live. Good evening. This is Nifty Culture. I'm Pio. And tonight I have the pleasure of speaking for the second time, but this time in a much better capacity, with the creator of the Meta Key, one of the absolute OGs when it comes to NFT content creation, Matty, also known as DCL, Decentraland Blogger. How's it going, Matty?
Hey Pio, hey everyone. Good man, doing well. Pumped.
Hell yeah. So, the first time that we got you on camera or on the show, I should say, it was to go through the rare Pepes and kind of learn about that together. It was a little bit of a shit show. So I'm pumped to have you back in a more normal capacity. And, I thought right now would be a good time to do it because we're kind of going through this bear market all of a sudden, this like kind of mini bear market, or some people think it might be a full on bear market in the NFT space. And you're an absolute OG when it comes to NFTs. You've been in the game since 2017, correct?
Mm-hmm. I've been in crypto since 2017. I made my first NFT investment in probably January 2018.
Okay, so just into 2018. So I can imagine that you've seen a ton of cycles, whether they be full-blown cycles or mini cycles. So just kind of kicking things off, what do you think about what's happening right now?
I don't know if it's a bear market because we've had, the apes thing. I mean, it hit like 20 million US dollars on Sotheby's. Then we had people still buying rocks for a couple $1 million. Um, yeah, I think we're still seeing action. I just did a stream and there was like Doja Cat getting into NFTs, had some other massive players. Yeah, I think Twitter's where a lot of people in the NFT space come in and watch for news and hype. And I think sometimes Twitter does slow down a little bit and you look at sales and it comes down. But we've seen like a $3 billion month last month on OpenSea, which is like 10x the one that they were before. So I think the nature of growth is, especially with a new industry that's going to have exponential growth from here, is a big move up and then a recalibration, and then another big move up and a recalibration. And what normally happens is those big moves come more frequently. So 2018 was a very, very slow period for the whole NFT market. It's very quiet. Not many people were doing it. If anything, we probably lost more people than we gained in 2018 because a lot more people were just leaving the scene. Bitcoin went down from like 20,000 to 3,000. Ethereum touched $86. So you can imagine, like, people were like, "Oh shit, there's not much spending power here, not much innovation going." But us in our small pockets, we were quite active. So no issue for me, man. Like, it's as long as I know what's happening in terms of the big players coming in and experimenting with this stuff, and as long as there's a collector, gamer, art, creative culture here, then I don't think we'll go backwards.
So I totally agree with you, man. And I'm so happy to hear you say that. And you're right. Like, me even titling this video, The Bear Market, it's coming from Twitter. Like, people on Twitter panic so fast. With crypto, with Bitcoin, same thing. In fact, that one's even funnier because I feel like at this point, the thing's been out for 12 years. You'd think that they'd finally have a little bit of conviction. But, that mid-cycle correction, which it wasn't even as bad as previous Bitcoin corrections, everyone was just like, the lowest high in the history of Bitcoin halving cycles. And so when I look at NFTs, yeah, sure, some of my lesser known NFTs that just came out 2 weeks ago have corrected by 60-70%. But what could I expect about those? When it comes to those, my Curio card investment is still up 10x. You bought Curio cards in early August. I'm sure you're still smiling when you look at the current value of that portfolio. So I'm really happy to hear you say that. Speaking of that investment of Curio cards, and the last time that you were on the show, we talked about rare Pepes. Have you had any more time to research those? Have you acquired anything more on that front? I'd love to know what kind of moves you've been making with the vintage NFTs.
Yeah, like, I like to start slow to medium and then let the industry prove more to me and then go in harder. So, I made my investments in Curio cards. I think it's quite a lot. I mean, it's 7 figures worth of investments in Curio cards. So for me to put more money into that, it's like, all right, Matty, you can go into this, but it has to come from somewhere else. You'll have to sell some of your art or something else. And for me, I like to be well diversified, like some art, some gaming, some historical stuff. As long as these NFTs are anchored in something that has longevity, that will continue to bring eyeballs to the project. So these ones, curio cards and rare pepes, I would say, are anchored in their history, right? There is a reason to get these because historically they mattered for the space as it grew. And as long as CryptoPunks keeps making headlines, because historically it's significant, people will keep researching and falling upon curio cards. Whereas games, they're anchored in the gameplay, they're anchored in the community around that game and the founders and the ability for them to build great game mechanics. Art is anchored in the artist and the collector art industry. So for me, as long as that's a thing and there's some good, something to hold on to that would bring eyeballs, it's fine. But in terms of if I invested more, um, I've kind of left it at the moment. I need to recalibrate to see if I invested in like a hype part of Rare Pepe. So for example, I bought the Rare Pepe. I'm not sure if I was in touch with you, if when I did the podcast I had bought this, or I think probably I didn't, but I bought the
I saw you
Nakamoto
tweet
one.
about it. It was afterwards, right? The
It
Nakamoto
was, I think it
card.
was afterwards. Yeah, I think it was 1 or 2 days afterwards. So I bought like the Nakamoto card for 110 ETH, which is 350,000 US dollars at the time. And now the cheapest one is 89 ETH. There's only one of them, but if that gets bought, then the next cheapest is 129 ETH. So I'm just waiting to see if more people will drop their prices, if it'll come down a bit. If it doesn't, I win. If it does come down, I can buy more. I still win. So it's kind of like putting yourself in a win-win position where you get some, see what happens. You make another move, you see what happens, and then you keep going in based on that.
That makes sense. And, obviously you're kind of moving around more money than the average investor, but I think that the average investor would be curious. Is your approach always to kind of move slowly into these projects, or sometimes when you have high conviction, do you absolutely ape in? I remember earlier this year, I was doing a video that was covering Victor and Victoria by Ferocious. And during the video, I realized that you had bought at mint, I don't know how many of them, you bought like 20 of them, right? And that piece ended up ripping to $7,000. So I don't know if you sold any, but at that time, that was it was a hell of an investment. I think it was probably about a 7X. So I'd just be curious to know at this point, basically pushing 4 years in the game, you've made some incredible moves. What sort of strategy do you something?
You cut off at the end there. What sort of strategy? What was the last question, sir?
Oh, yeah. What sort of strategy do you maintain if you have really high conviction in something? Like, are you aping into it? Do you take that Nakamoto strategy where you buy one and wait? Like, how do you approach those things?
Yeah, so I learned like last year, a good friend Pablo, I think. So Pablo Frail from the one who very early art collector, with people and all that. But me and him are good friends, and he told me, he's like, Matty, don't be afraid to go in really hard if you have good conviction on something. When you take big positions on something and that big position turns into a 20 to 30x, that's actually how you make big money, right? So talk about the early, punk collectors, the ones that were forking out 20 to 50K, 100K on punks to buy like the really rare alien ones or the ape ones back when people weren't spending even thousands of dollars, right? So, sometimes I do that. Like if I have really strong conviction, I'll go on a massive buying spree. Maybe I know the founder. Maybe I know that like, for example, I think, I'm just going to say it straight up, but I think Akira from Artifact Studio is, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like I'm probably going to go really heavy on that because I know that Artifact from day one have the mind of serving the community, and when they have that and the tech skills to say, all right, well, those that have these NFTs, well, in our next drop we'll get something. Oh, we're going to do something in the metaverse. Oh, you can do something with the merch. They're going to keep exploring new spaces and keep bringing utility to those NFTs. Like, for example, Artifact Studio, about a year ago, they did a collab with Ferocious, right? The shoes. I'm not sure if you've come across the shoes before. Yeah, but they did the Artifact and Pharaoh shoes, and I bought like 20 of them, right, for $3,000 each. And I just bought them because I wanted the shoe. I was like, oh, the shoe's going to be awesome. Maybe that physical collectible will become something. So they said, if you buy the NFT, you get a shoe as well. It's a ferocious one. I was like, okay, cool. This is going to probably make headlines and be the biggest shoe NFT drop. And Ferocious is probably going to go on and do many, many merch collabs. So if that happens, then these early NFTs and shoes will probably be worth a lot of money. I did that. I got the shoes. The NFTs themselves went down in value because everyone was like, "Oh well, I got my shoes. Let me just sell this NFT." They went down from like $800 to $1,000. But then Artifact came out and said that if you own any of those NFTs, then you get to mint 3 of their Akira drops for 0.05 Ethereum. So basically, it's a ticket to access a minimum of 3 Akira NFTs. Right? Suddenly, those shoes are worth 20K, 25K each. The NFTs themselves. So I understand Artifact Studio. They understand the secondary market is where the value is. So a lot of artists, they come into this space, they try and sell as much as they can, but the real money is really made in the cash flow. The real money is made when you promote a healthy secondary market. So you're getting 3 to 5% royalties per sale. Suddenly your things are trading at, you're doing $1 million in volume a day, you're earning, 50K in the bank every single day. That's the real money that's being made. So Artifact Studio understand that. And to me, I feel like the Akira drop that they'll do, they'll go on to build like a pretty big metaverse approach with that.
Well, thank you for dropping Big Alpha on the show. That's awesome. So everyone take a look at the Akira drop. That's wild that you kind of, gave us that. So I appreciate that. That's so interesting that you say that though, about how the value of the NFT dropped. And if I recall, like that NFT dropped on Nifty Gateway. So it probably, the value there probably dropped with the rest of that market that fell off in, April and May. So that's interesting that anybody that went in and scooped that up, at its low point is smiling ear to ear because of just later utility that was, put onto that NFT. And we're going to see that more and more. And I think what you said about the low mint cost is really a trend that we're starting to see, because people are, getting hip to that secondary appreciation play. Because if you look at Bored Apes, think about how much money the founders of Bored Apes have made. Not that they approached it with an incredibly low price point at the time, but because of just the ridiculous appreciation that the assets have gained. I can only imagine what their monthly, cash flow is. What do you make of these NFTs like Loot, for example, that are going in a totally different direction, that have caught fire, that have absolutely exploded, and are pretty damn original, but a lot of people are scratching their heads and a lot of people don't quite understand them?
Yeah, there's some NFT spaces that I don't understand the demographic that well, and art for me was one of them. When I first started, it took me a long time to understand why people would buy art when you can make as many as you want. So Loot seems to be something going crazy with developers, gamers that understand what this may mean. So if the way I understand the concept is it's on-chain data that's built into the NFT that's basically open for the community to build games and apps and art based on that data. And so for me, the question is, why wouldn't someone else release? So that Loot went on to release 10,000 of them or 8,000 of them. Why wouldn't someone else later on release like 100,000 of them for 0.02 ETH? Get a larger community involved, invested, a larger community of devs, creators, gamers, and what's going to hold the value of the original Loot, right? We've already seen like 100 derivatives. I would say the on-chain data being one of the first stored on blockchain, totally can see that holding value, but I guess maybe like are the founders going to come out and build some games to showcase what can be done here? Yeah, personally, I'm just watching and learning, because if it does do good, then it's not going to be the only one that will do good.
That's a good point. And I mean, there's been so many derivatives, and my issue with it is that when you have something like this that's easy to reproduce, I mean, not that it's easy to reproduce, but it's easier to reproduce this than it is to reproduce, something by Ferocious. And with the art game, it's just a totally different animal than like something like this, which is an 8,000 piece collectibles drop. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm also watching and learning. I'm not in a position that I'm going to spend 7 ETH on one of these Loot pieces right now when I really don't understand what's going on. But the fact that Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, came forward and promoted it, that really got my attention, because if someone like that can appreciate it, then I have to think that plenty of other people can too. And that's why it's performed so well. There also were some relatively innovative things with the airdrops. I don't have all the details memorized, but it does seem like they're on to something. Do you like, gun to your head, would you predict that this is a long-standing trend or something that's more of a flash in the pan?
I think it's worth taking the risk and just buying one, if you have the funds for it. Because if it is a big deal, then you're in. If it isn't a big deal, well, you're not. It is 7 ETH now. I mean, that's pretty damn expensive. But say it was at 1 ETH or 2 ETH. For me, I would have bought 1 or 2 just to see what comes out of it. When Vitalik comes out, I didn't see that tweet. Did he promote this particular project or the concept of it? Because I think people were loving the concept of it. If they're loving the concept, it's a different story, right?
I think he said loot specifically, like, right after this came out, before a bajillion derivatives followed it, like when this came out, and it wasn't like promoting it, but he said, like, I like that concept,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's the interesting part, right? So people are going to innovate on this concept. We had the numbers thing, so people are buying numbers now. What is it? The N project or something. And then I've seen one where there's like this cards project, where you can buy this deck of cards that's stored on chain, and you can get a special deck of cards, ace, jack, 1 and 3 and stuff like that, and maybe you can build some sort of a gameplay around that. So I'm seeing like derivatives of it. So yeah, the concept's cool, but again, like, what's going to hold this specific value? What's it anchored in? That's my question.
That's my question too. And, here's one of the derivatives. This is by Beanie Squad. Basically identical with a green background instead of the black background. And then funnier, like a funnier list of items. Like the list of items is very tongue in cheek and it's very funny. And people have really gravitated to this. People are very much so interested in this particular project as well. And it's just been fascinating for me to watch it. I almost like hope that it doesn't remain to be being a strong trend, just because I'd rather look at something that's a little bit more interesting, whether it's an art project, a collectibles project, or just something else. But, you can't deny success, and people are buying these things on the secondary market still at high volumes. So I have to think we might be looking at these and hearing about these for a little bit.
I think so too. Where there's an active community, they'll are you talking about this specific one or the derivatives?
All of them, loot, bloot, exclude, like all this stuff.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, to me, it's a bit early, so I'll just watch and we'll see how it pans out. Hopefully it does, for those that hold them, it does become like the generated art industry. That just blew me away. I had no idea how that went down.
It's wild, man. And I think that the cash that's available, if you have the technical skills to program a smart contract that works, and then you partner with an artist that can, generate something. And I mean, in this case, it's, pretty easy to generate, but just any of these 10,000 piece collectibles projects, including the rug pulls, right? Including the famed lady squads of the world, where the whole project was predicated on the idea that the founders were women. And then what a surprise, they were literally all men. But the thing is, you almost can't get that mad at those scammers, because there's just so much money. Like, if you're going to show some people like 2 million USD equivalent is available, if you just follow this blueprint of program the smart contract, make the art, promote it, pay a promoter 20 ETH, and you make over $2 million, people are going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like almost guaranteed to be able to make like $100,000 with a drop, no matter who you are. If you can get a dev team and figure out how to do a random generation thing, and it even be like a very medium to half baked, 6 figures is probably very easy to make. If it catches fire, then you're looking at millions in a sellout and potentially a lot of secondary market income. So yeah, you can't blame them in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what I'm looking to do, obviously, but it's just, I understand it. I understand why people are like, wait a minute, you mean we can be a totally anon team? We'll never show our face. No one will know who we are, and we'll make this money. I do like, though, like you had talked about before, the people that are getting smarter and making quality projects with the lower price point to attract the speculators, so that then, not only are people buying into the project because they're interested in the utility or interested in the art, but they're actually just buying into the project early for speculative purposes. And that increases the sales volume, which is going to increase the attention on the project by, 100-fold. And it also, sets the floor prices and allows there to be a large sample size of data to help, evaluate what the project is worth early on.
Yeah, totally agree.
So let's talk about Metakey a little bit, Matty, if you don't mind, or
Sure, man.
maybe you're all you're all Metakeyed out at this point. But this is your project. In many ways, the Nifty Culture Token is I don't want to say modeled after this, but you know,
Mhm.
this is kind of the inspiration for the Nifty Culture Token in many ways. Can you talk about Metakey? You know, what made you do it in the first place, and what's coming next?
Yeah, sure. So real quickly, the Medikey is a project where we're flipping the idea of just owning the NFT just for the art. In our case, you're buying the NFT, which yes, it is an art piece, but it's going to have hundreds and hundreds of utility that we're going to bake into it. So you'll be able to take your Medikey across games, and it gives you like special perk, whether it be able to fly, you'll be able to get a 1% stat boost, or maybe it's a skin item that it'll transform into. But it makes use of the fact that anyone can make an NFT, and that NFT can plug into any other people's projects because it's a blockchain, and then you can give it something, a use case in that. So we have a Meta Academy where if you log in, there's like 7 or 8 video courses there by people covering different NFT parts, and we're going to keep adding courses to that. There's like there's all sorts of things that we're doing. We're building like a Decentraland HQ. We've got an avatar drop that's coming that has partnerships with like the most AAA brands that we haven't even announced yet, that you'll be able to get for free if you have the Medikey. So it's, it's an idea of the Medikey is your core thing. You buy it, you're going to get hundreds of utility aspects and airdrops and stuff like that. But yeah, it's an idea of, instead of it being extremely art based, it's extremely utility based.
That's awesome. And you know, you brought up a lot of video game stuff. I think video games are obviously like a very natural place for NFTs to go. NFTs allow people that play video games to actually monetize and take ownership of their accomplishments, which, you know, people outside the video gaming space might not understand that, but people in the space, you know, view character development, you know, getting rare items as real accomplishments, and other people also do. So finally, there's like a real marketplace to be able to exchange that stuff, you know, where you actually own the underlying assets. So it's really exciting to me. How deep have you gotten into the video game side of NFTs, and you know, what are your interests over there?
Yeah, I'm a big gamer, or at least I used to be. Love playing games. Played Pokemon, Warcraft, Super Smash Bros. Like, I don't play video games now because I get too obsessed with stuff that I do. So if I start playing, I will not stop playing. So I've had to delete all my video games. I remember when I invested in Axie Infinity, I did so because I downloaded the game and I was like, "Holy shit, this is addictive!" Kept playing it for ages, and I deleted it because it was so addictive. And I was like, "This is a freaking good game. I'll invest in it, right?" So I am super excited for the video game space. I grew up in RuneScape. I grew up in virtual trading. So for me, that being a reality, I think is super awesome. Like I remember in RuneScape, all that I used to do is trade party hats and gloves and iron armor and stuff, and try and increase my RuneScape gold, right? So in this world, it's real gold or real money, but it's similar sort of mechanic where you're buying and selling these virtual assets, really. So I'm just extremely excited, man. I've been dying for it for the last 4 years, but good video games take years to make.
Right. And yeah, I think RuneScape is the game that everybody brings up. That's like the most natural example of where NFTs would be relevant, because people were trading RuneScape assets back in the day for large sums of money, you know, long before any blockchain or NFT technology existed. You mentioned Axie Infinity. A lot of people are making a lot of money off Axie Infinity right now, you know, acquiring these digital assets and then actually leasing their digital assets to people that essentially become employees, which is a very fascinating economy. And I saw something about how the Axie Infinity token is now, I don't know, it's like the second biggest asset in the Philippines, or I don't remember the statistic. I'm definitely butchering it, but basically this incredibly notable statistic that tells you the depth of impact that Axie Infinity has had on, you know, the nation of the Philippines. Is that something you're taking? You know, you mentioned you invested into Axie Infinity. Do you have scholarships going with that right now, or what's your involvement with Axie Infinity?
I don't have any scholarships. I don't have the time to explore that sort of a business side of things. I'm sure it's going to be huge, and I'm going to be kicking myself for not starting something there. But yeah, I don't have the capacity to start and manage a scholarship business. But yeah, it's going nuts, right? Like it's providing an income. You play the game, you earn some crypto. That crypto is currently more money than people would make in their average salary in some of these countries. So millions of people are playing it. People that couldn't do work before, like grandparents, kids, um, maybe handicapped, or like for some reason they can't work, can just do so from their home and make money for their families. A lot of these families are struggling and just trying to provide money for their kids and stuff like that. So it's like totally solving this need for capital in these countries that aren't able to get it, especially COVID. Yeah, but for me, when I invested in it, I had no idea it was going to go to that extent. For me, it was just all right. Well, it looks like this game is getting daily players, daily active players. And back then, I think I remember Jeff tweeting that, oh, they just hit 10,000 daily active users. And for me, I was like, oh, whoa, that's quite a lot in the NFT space. And they kept hitting their target, like not targets, but they kept beating that record like week after week, day after day. And it just became a no brainer that, wait a second, if they keep getting tens of thousands, if not probably millions of players some days, then wouldn't their scarce Genesis original axes go up in value? And for me, the answer was yes. So yeah, I ended up buying the access token and the early Mystic axis.
You're just early at everything, huh, man?
Well, no, I mean, I missed out on punks. I missed out on art blocks. I missed out on much of the early art, the single edition packs. I remember looking at punks and they were $150 a piece. And I did a video on it talking about how it's a fucking great project. Sorry, how it's a great project, and didn't end up buying shit. So you win some.
That's
You lose
wild
some.
to me. That's wild
Yeah,
that you
well,
didn't ape in, because I see you throw the money around in the space. That's wild.
yeah, but back then, I was super obsessed with decentraland and virtual land trading. So for me, I had this thesis on. I was not a collector at all, so it wasn't collecting and long-term investing. For me, it was pure flipping and trading. So I was buying virtual land portfolios for under the price, and then selling them to make like a quick 1.5x gain, and I was recirculating that money for like 2 years straight. So I was not looking at anything but Decentraland at that time. So when punks were doing good, but for me, yeah, like the investor that I am now, I would totally put some money in to these communities that seem like they have some merit. But oh well, you can only get better in time.
Did you buy apes?
Nope.
Add that one to
Apes
the list. I didn't buy that either.
apes I think it was very difficult to pick up that apes being one of the first 10,000 avatar projects was going to go and do like comparable volume to CryptoPunks. Who would have thought that, right? But I think Medikey and Gary V launched at the same time. So when Medikey launched, I was MIA for 3 months because we were building the team, we were hiring, building the process, the structure, getting partnerships, like rolling out a roadmap. It was crazy for the first 4 months. I could not even stop and eat food. So I missed out on a few big things during that 3 months. But yeah, the industry keeps moving forward, and there's always like $1 million opportunity around the corner.
Well, yeah, I mean, last weekend, it's a holiday in the United States, right? It's Labor Day weekend. And, as I mentioned, we had our drop. That was the day before the weekend started. And so I've been working like that and, I have a day job still. So I was working so hard that, you can't even eat food, right? As I was leaving, I was going to take 2 days off from NFTs. Okay. So leave Friday afternoon, get back Sunday morning, have a little bit of a weekend during a holiday weekend. And I said, I'm not going to get upset about missing anything in the NFT space. It's not going to happen. Literally 20 minutes before I leave, my friend pings me that pack dropped Lost Poets. So I even was able to buy Lost Poets right before the weekend. So it was like, like a basketball buzzer beater on the way out before the weekend. I was like, now I really can't be mad about missing anything. And I'm pretty sure I missed out on like $50,000 worth of gains over the weekend. And I'm just still pissed about it,
Yeah. I know, man. I know how you feel. Sometimes I'm like, my body, my soul, my everything will thank me for taking 24 hours off, but I just cannot do it. Part of me just like would kill to just have a week off and have my brain relax. It's just so hard, man. I think opportunity is like a drug, right? There's just so much opportunity, and to think you'd miss something that comes your way. Like the other day, and this kills me, but 4 days ago, there was, so Marvel are dropping comic mints, like official licensed comics on Vive,
On
right?
Vivi, yeah.
VV. And man, I don't know if you were able to pick like the 1939 mint or the very first ones, but they're 20k, 15k, 20k USD. I remember looking at them and they were 8k, and I was gonna sweep the floor and grab like 10 of them, but I could not bring my money because they're only accepting like fiat. They're not accepting crypto, so my bank would have issues, and I just couldn't do it. But I'm just like, I can't do anything but helplessly watch that increase from 4k to 8k, and now it's sitting at 17k in the last 4 days. But yeah.
It's not, I mean, Vivi, that's a totally different animal, right? And actually, the speculation is that Vivi is going to make its way to OpenSea. Like, they're actually going to allow Vivi users to withdraw the assets. So I really wonder, because there's so much volume on those assets. The volume is like unlike the volume that's in the traditional NFT space. So I wonder how that's going to impact the whole ecosystem. I've bought one drop on Vivi. I bought the Spider-Man drop, I believe. And I know a lot of content creators that do VV content, so I kind of like have connections for advice in the VV world. And that Marvel drop that you talked about, was that one where you just buy it and you get a random one? Like, you don't target the ultra rare. It was like you buy it and then you
I
just
think
get a
so.
random. Okay, so
Yeah.
they told me like stay away from that, and clearly, sometimes the insiders can lead you astray, because I think that's like a pretty gnarly return if you had bought into that.
In terms of the drop, yes, because if you got the ultra rare, it was like, a couple of $1,000 or $4,000 immediately. But if you got the non-rare, then it was like $17, right? So in terms of that drop, I'm not sure. But in terms of post-drop, what that actually means, because 1939 is the first ever comic that Marvel released, right? And so that's the first ever NFT mint that Marvel released as a comic. And so if they go on to mint everything else from now as comic books, then that's like your Nakamoto Rare Pepe right there.
Wow.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking, well, okay. And this is the thing, like, so that 1939 mints, they did a drop of multiple different rarities. So one's like 300 scarcity, one's an ultra rare, one's a common, blah, blah, blah. You can still pick up the commons for like $20 or $50 each. So you can still get part of the Genesis collection for Marvel comics. So for me, going back and looking at that post drop and analyzing it as a whole sort of investment into Marvel's future into the NFT space, I think it's pretty interesting.
For sure. I mean, and watching those things explode when you had like, an inclination to buy, to me is like the worst thing ever. The Bored Apes makes my stomach turn. I can't be mad about CryptoPunks because I never really was in a position where I had like the knowledge, or I was in the space and had the liquidity to buy a CryptoPunk. So I don't feel weird about CryptoPunks, but it's the ones that you miss that just like eat away at you. And it's tough to, it's tough to just live with that, but we'll move on. I'd love to know, you talked about like one project that you're bullish on already. Is there anything else that's coming soon that you're really interested in that you'll be buying into? Anything that you can share about, upcoming projects that you're bullish on?
Upcoming projects, I'm not sure. I think I've just got the Akira drop. The Mechaverse thing looks pretty cool. No artists. Like, for me, I've kind of spent a lot of money on the industries that I want to spend money on. So unless I get a massive injection of capital in some other way, like I'm starting a venture fund, so I might invest using that. But yeah, projects at the moment, just waiting for there to be something that comes onto my radar. It's usually the newer stuff that comes on my radar. I'm like, oh shit, this is a big deal, and then I go in. Curio cards, I'm just waiting to see what the vibe is like. And like right now, the volume's dropped probably quite low. But I'm waiting for Curio cards because, man, there's so many whales in Curio cards that even though there's so much volume that comes in, it still stays at the like somewhat of the same price. Like for the last 2 weeks, the price has been between 1 to 1.5 ETH for the floor Curio cards, right? And it's probably because you got whales there that have like 100 to 200 of the same Curio cards that are slowly dumping. So unless like there's a lot of volume and better distribution there, then I'm not going to revisit that. But like I'd always double down, triple down on the same investments if it makes sense.
I'm the same way. I love buying the dip on things that I have high conviction on. With curio cards, I think that that auction is kind of the key for all of these vintage projects, right? So we saw a floor increase on the Crypto Fighters vintage project, which is from 2018. And I believe the claim with that one is that it was the first play to earn game. About a month ago, it was like 0.03, 0.04 floor. Then it jumped up to 0.15 floor. And then an article and an interview was done with them. I believe it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And that prompted the floor to jump from 0.15 to zero point 0.3, and that's where we're at now. And I look at those little projects. I look at the Pepes, right? The Pepes is definitely something that falls into this category. And I'm watching offers come in and slowly increase on the Pepes that I have, and also seeing some 1 ETH, 2 ETH sales on some of the Pepes that I have. So I think that if the curio cards auction is electric, which is a big if, but you never know, then I think that that could prompt a crazy bull run with these vintage projects. But I think that, besides the Beeple $69 million auction, some of these auctions can kind of underwhelm. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think they kind of overwhelmed. Like, I wouldn't have thought Bored Apes would have done 20 mil, which is insane. Like $20 million for a collections, $3 million plus for a single Bored Ape. It can underwhelm. I think it's also got to do a lot with the state of the market. So if the crypto industry is looking a little bit bearish, if Bitcoin's fallen and the spending, like people are just not spending confidently anymore at that point in time, it can underwhelm. It can affect the industry a bit. But yeah, man, I agree with you. Like if the auction does really well, but there's also the hype before the auction. So for example, there's a lot of volume and a lot of expectation that the auction is going to do really well, and that creates a lot of volume as well. So I'm expecting the next 2 to 3 weeks there to be some insane volume for curio cards as we get closer and closer to that point.
I hope so, man. Holy shit. I hope so. That would be really nice to have the curios really pop off. And it would definitely spill over into Pepe's. So you bought the Nakamoto card. Did you acquire that guy's portfolio that you were talking about?
No, he wanted 8 figures for it.
Wow, he's not playing around.
No, he's not playing around. He wanted 8 figures. He had some really rare stuff, right? Rare stuff for sure, but I don't know if I've got that conviction or the money to get an 8-figure Pepe collection.
It's a tough one, and I've been looking at it so close. The reason it's so tough is it's so damn hard to come up on them, and there's so many of them, and some of the sizes of the mints are just like through the roof insane.
Yeah.
So it's an awkward collection compared to what people are used to now. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be valued in a massive way in the future. It could be like, in hindsight, it'll be inevitable. Oh, how did we not know about the Pepes? They were so old and they were Pepe themed. It can definitely go that way. But at the same time, it's so damn hard, man. Like we were fumbling in that video last time. Gillies knows everything about it. He's told me about it like 10 times. I still know nothing. I don't know how to do it at all. I'm just too dumb to figure it out, And yeah.
No, I was just, like I've definitely been speaking to people. So when I got really into it, I started to speak to like the OGs in the rare Pepe, and I reached out to the people that I knew were into the space back in the day. So I got in touch with one of the biggest Pepe collector who owns 5 of the 8 single edition Pepes, right?
Whoa.
I think there's only 8 of them that are only 1 mint, and he owns like 4 or 5 of them. So he's a true collector, and I know he's a true collector because even 2-3 years ago he was buying art when no one else was. So I talked to him, and he was like, "Yeah, Matty, like this really is showing signs of doing really well because it's got like that OG culture. It's deeply rooted in what used to exist back in the day, like when it was more about Bitcoin and less about altcoins, and less about Ethereum." And he told me he was also saying Pepe Cash. He was like, "Oh, I reckon Pepe Cash might really do really well because not only was it a currency, but it was also an art piece." So Pepe Cash is got like I don't know 100 million tokens or releases, but people use Pepe Cash.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it could have like a Dogecoin factor to it if rare Pepe goes nuts. So yeah, he you're right. It's hard to figure out what to do, and there's so much information, but that's why I'm taking my time with rare Pepes. I'm not really FOMOing into too much. Just like the first one is always a no-brainer. If there's a Genesis piece, it's always a no-brainer. But apart from that, then it's like, what else? What else is here?
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I really haven't spent much on rare Pepes at all, because Gillies helped me snipe them for such low cost, like incredibly low cost, and they were all low supply. So if Pepes do pop off, I'm positioned to really take advantage of that. It's going to be hard for me to part with any of the ones that I only have like single mints of, because I like them. I really like the Pepes. I think they're hilarious and they're interesting to me. So yeah, let's just talk about this project, and then I'll let you go. Did you pay attention to to the hype building on this project and what went down afterwards?
It was on my radar. I didn't really look at it too much. I just know that there's a lot of hype around it, and someone came and minted like 1,000 of them, and then seemed like a wholesaler or something. But apart from that, definitely didn't follow this project. The art style is cool, but I just feel like there's going to be way cooler stuff coming out. So yeah,
I think that's fair. One Twitter person made a hilarious joke, which was he said that they called it the sevens because only 7 people were able to mint them, because that guy minted 1,000 of them. I mean, the unique owners is relatively high given what went down. I guess that might be because the contract did have that stipulation of you could only mint one at like pretty good. I had some artists were like talking smack about the art, and now that I kind of see it, and I'm not trying to be an art hater, and I don't like ever saying something negative about someone else's art ever, because it's just like, who am I to say that? And art is in the eye of the beholder. But when I look at this, like, I'll take Oni over this all day. I think some of them are pretty cool, like that looks pretty cool, but at the same time, I could see why artists in our Discord are kind of like, yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
And now there's kind of a black eye on the project, given the amount, you build all that hype, and isn't the hype just to sell out? And then you made it so that the people that bought into the hype couldn't get any,
Yeah, it's tough, because there's always going to be people that will miss out. If 50,000 people want something, there's only 10,000 of them, then yeah, of course you're going to have some angry people. But I was the same as you, man. Like I said, like you said, I don't like hating on art or making negative comments on it, because art's a sensitive thing. But for me, I was looking closely. I was like, oh, it's not as polished as other projects, and maybe that's just their style. Maybe that's the style that project is done in. But for me, like you said, like Oni, and soon Mechaverse, right, and Akira, like those just, for me, I love that. Like when I looked at that, I was like, holy shit, I want one of those things. But compared to the sevens, it was more like, well, I don't know what's happening with the sevens. I don't really like it. So I'm trying to realize, just to drop back a little bit, and just truly just buy what you like.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've FOMO'd into stuff, and it is just, I think FOMOing into an NFT and then holding the bag on it is the worst thing in the world, because you're like, I don't even like this thing,
Yeah, and you wake up the next morning and you're like, well, what did I just do that for?
Exactly. Like, what did I think was going to happen? And, at least if the art is good, or if there's something about the project that's good, you're comfortable holding the bag, because you're like, I like this, so maybe someday this will come back, someone else will like it. And yes, but I totally get you on that. So yeah, man, look, real pleasure talking to you here. Talking to you, I learned so much. One last question is, what can you tell us about what's going on with Decentraland? I admittedly know basically nothing about it. I know I'm talking to, like, the Albert Einstein of the Decentraland market. So I'd love to hear, any kind of input you could have. Keep it high level, because I don't think our viewers know even nearly like a 1/100th of what you know.
Yeah, Decentraland, I know, is one, extremely well funded. Two, brands are already launching on it. So Coca-Cola are launching on it. Did already launch on it. NASA are doing a wearables line in Decentraland. Decentraland are seeming to go to a more kind of, it's a very laggy experience if you go into Decentraland right now. And I think the only thing they're missing is a fluid experience where anyone can jump in within 5 seconds on mobile or desktop and take advantage of what's going on. If they can fix that sort of 5-second timer to get in, and for it to be fluid, and for people to display their art and whatever, then I think they can do really, really well. So I'm not keeping on top of Decentraland totally. I just know that is doing well in terms of brands, and we're going to be building pretty big HQ there for the Medikey, where if you can jump in, and we're going to be doing conferences and museums and art, and kind of making use of this virtual places.
Unreal. And do you think that once VR goggles are super accessible to everybody and in every household, that something like Decentraland will be uniquely positioned to kind of blow up once the VR thing is in full effect?
I think yes, but I think human beings are quite lazy as well. Like we like really simple stuff. We don't really like walking up and moving around. Maybe for an extra immersive experience, but just sitting there on the laptop, clicking buttons and talking to people, you're not really doing much and moving, using much energy, but you're getting lot, lot of, a lot of return. So although we all think VR and the metaverse and 3D and all this hyper cool stuff, I think people are quite simple at their core. So, I saw Treeverse, which is Loopify's project. And I was like, oh, that's simple. It's a 2D world. People are running around having fun, trying to hack the game and do all sorts of stuff that people. It reminded me of the RuneScape culture back in the day. So I bought some because it works already, right? It didn't need to be 3D. So I'm in the middle of those two lines of thought.
Nice. Yeah. Loopify's project, that project is very much so inspired by RuneScape. And a friend of mine, in real life that isn't really in NFTs bought into it because as soon as he saw the RuneScape thing, he was like, I'm in. And it was a good investment, right? Like the floor really went up on that thing. So I think he's onto something there. Well, Matty, you have your Medikey coming out pretty soon. What's the date on that where our viewers and myself, hopefully the viewers don't buy it before me, but I need to buy one. But what's the story with when Medikey's coming out?
So Medikey, we're working with the artist to finish the artwork for it. It's going to be freaking amazing. I'm not sure if you saw the 3rd edition Medikey, but if you did, it might even beat that in terms of what it looks like. So Marco Matic's one. This one is pretty much like it's pretty cool.
I mean, this is a sick one. Yeah. And it turns into like a credit card or what. It's pretty sick. Yeah.
Yeah. So our new artist is going to be building something similar lines. It's going to be 3D and animated, except it's going to be having a lot more of our lore, so our spaceship and stuff like that. So I reckon the artwork's going to be insane. It comes with the free PFP. The artwork's taken a while, so I think another, conservatively, let's just say 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So not this week, 7 days next week, and the 7 days after that. So what is the date? Let's give it a date. So we're on the 9th September. So let's just say end of September, we should have it dropped. And then maybe 2 weeks to a month after that, we'll be able to let everyone claim an avatar.
Is there going to be a white list? Is there anything we can do to get on it early? You were being humble before saying you don't think it's going to sell out, but I'm like, I don't know about that, Matty.
I don't know, man. Like, can we raise 6 mil? Like, that's a lot of money, right? To come in to buy these things out.
I don't know. Can you? We're going to see.
There's no real whitelist, but what you can do is join the Discord. The Medikey Discord is because we're going to post it 10 minutes before on the Discord before I post on Twitter. So my Twitter might go off when I do the announcement post, but if you're in my Discord 10 minutes earlier in the Medikey Discord, then it will announce it there. So everyone that's in the Discord can go ahead and buy it.
Well, hopefully you don't post it in the Discord when gas is 250 Gwei. I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I'm scared of that. Like, I need to give everyone a 24-hour heads up. So when I commit to the 24-hour heads up, I'm hoping it's not going to be some crazy high gas prices.
We could have talked about that for 45 minutes, but Matty, thanks so much for coming on. Everyone, make sure you watch Matty's content. He's been doing content for a million years compared to I have. He's an absolute OG, DCL blogger on YouTube, DCL blogger on Twitter. He's just as prolific on Twitter. I really don't know how you do it, man. I'm exhausted from doing 2 or 3 tweets a day, and you're ripping them out, thoughtful tweets every hour. So we appreciate what you do, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. The question says, Keymasters get it for free. Yes, they do, Alpha. They do get it for free. But yeah, man, thanks for having me, Pio. I love being on the show. I've been here twice, and I appreciate talking to you. It's just been fun talking NFTs. So thank you.
My pleasure, man. Maybe we can have you on after Medikey drops when your world slows down. And hopefully at that point, I'm holding one and I'm not just holding a big bag of gas from a failed transaction.
Yeah, man. Gas is a killer.
All right. See you, Matty.